Hi, welcome to lecture 1A of social influence. And what we're going to be doing, we're going to be following on from lecture 1, where we looked at what conformity is, the types of conformity, and explanations of conformity. And we're going to be focusing on key examination questions that have ever come up in AS psychology. So our first question, explain what is meant by internalization. So what they want you to do for this particular question is to include, remember when we talked about the keywords, which was public. So, for example, people conform in public, so they don't eat meat when they're out with their friends, and when they get home, they no longer eat meat either because they truly believe that eating meat is wrong. So they're both conforming both publicly and privately. So very important that you use those keywords when you're describing what conformity is or internalization. Again, the same thing you use with compliance. So in compliance, so in public, people may agree to the group decision, but in private, they may not agree. And again, use like a example, like you can talk about the meat or you can talk about smoking. Whatever you use, just make sure you use an example to get your full 3 marks, and you both use public and private, those two keywords that they're looking for. Discuss research into conformity. This is only an 8-mark question, and if you go on to see lecture 4B later on, I've written a sample A grade exam question for this particular question. But quickly, I'm letting you know that what I do here is talk about and outline. So discuss means outline and evaluate. So I'll outline Ash's study, and then I give an elaborated evaluation point, and that should be enough to get you your AO1 and AO2 marks. This question, I write it again for you in lecture 4B, so if you want to take a look at that, I'll show you exactly how I've written it and what I've put into it. But just to go through the same process, I've outlined Ash's study, I've also outlined maybe briefly a variation study to give it a bit more knowledge, and then I've done my main limitations, I've elaborated on that, and I've given my strengths and I've elaborated on that, and I've also added a conclusion. Remember, conclusion is very important for essay, academic essays, because they do add to your AO2 marks as well. This is an application question. The reason we know it's an application question is because they've used people's names like Josie, Hannah, Caitlin. Doesn't matter what name they use. They can use Nina, Bola, Abdul, whichever. Who cares? As long as you see these names, they want you to include these people's lives in the particular scenario. So they want you to know which girl's behaviour is being influenced by normative social influence and which girl's behaviour is being influenced by informational social influence. To justify both choices, for example, you need to say Hannah observes her colleagues closely and makes sure that she completes the work in the same way that they do. So before we start answering the question, I would underline the key things. So completes the work in the same way that they do. She observes her colleagues closely. So basically, Hannah believes that her colleagues are experts and they know what they're doing. And Hannah has the basic need, for example, to be correct. So we know that Hannah is displaying informational social influence because it's obviously leading to internalization. So she does it publicly and she privately because she really watches carefully before she does what she does, so she does not make any mistakes. Yeah, so she has a basic need to want to be right. Whereas the other lady, so Joseph, she laughs a lot of the jokes her colleagues tell, even though she does not always find them funny. So this already is straight normative social influence because Josie obviously has a basic need to want to fit in, and this has led her to compliance. This is because in public she's laughing at the jokes, but in private she actually doesn't find them very funny. So again, you need to be using those keywords and how these explanations link to the types of conformity each of these ladies are displaying. Caitlin, she's not even part of it, so don't bother talking about Caitlin. All you need to talk about is a normative and informational, using keywords and what type of conformity it leads to, and that should get you 6 marks. Again, the same type of application question, this time using Jan and Nora, and they want to know explain which type. When you see explain, you know they're talking about explanations of sorry, they say explain which type. So when you say which type, They want to know the types of conformity. So that's either internalization or compliance. So let's look at, for example, Jan had listened to their point of view and now she also eats only organic food. So Jan, even in both in public and private, she's eating organic food. So her type of conformity would obviously be internalization because of public and private. Whereas Nora, she eats organic food while in the house, so that is publicly. So you need to talk about in public she's doing this. But when she went home for the holidays privately, she ate whatever her mother cooked. So these are both reasons. So both girls conform, but for different reasons. So you need to say what type of conformity it actually was. Explain what is meant by informational social influence. Again, the same thing where we have the basic human need to want to be right, to want to be correct, and we look at others as experts. So therefore, we change our behavior simply because we believe others to be right. And this leads to internalization because publicly we believe what we're doing is correct and privately as well. Whereas normative, we have the basic need to want to feel accepted and to feel liked. So we change our behavior so we can fit in with the group. So this leads obviously to compliance, where publicly we may change our behavior, but privately we may not actually believe this. So if you continue that, so it should be 3 marks for each of these particular questions. Be careful on the marks. Make sure you have at least 3 bits of information for each. Nice simple question. I like to use a process of elimination for these questions. So the following phrases refer to different types of conformity. Select the 2 phrases that describe internalization. So I'll underline that to make sure I'm not doing it compliance because it's so easy to make this mistake. So let's look at it from the top. The deepest level of conformity. I would tick that because internalization is the deepest level of conformity because it's quite permanent. Both our private thoughts, our private beliefs have also changed as well. So we can say this is the deepest level of conformity. So I'll tick there. What about the individual conforms publicly with the rest of the group but may privately disagree with them? So we know that's wrong because that is describing compliance. C, the beliefs of the group become part of the individual's own belief system. So I'll put a star there because to me that is correct, but I just want to make sure what the other 2 are. So this is what you should do. You shouldn't be too hasty. D, the individual goes along with the group but does not agree with them. Nope, so that is definitely compliance. But the individual changes his or her beliefs, but it's a temporary change. So I would say no. I'm more likely to go with the beliefs of the group become part of the individual's own belief system. So I'll tick C and I'll tick A as well to get me my 2 marks. This question is dealt with in lecture 4B, where I've actually written out the sample essay for you. So again, outline and evaluate explanations of conformity. So we're outlining the 2 explanations, that is normative and informational. And what I've done is I've used a study to support the explanations as well, and that is Ash's study. Again, remember when I told you that all I'm going to do is recycle Ash's study for now. An application question. It is Annie's first day in a new job and he spends a lot of time watching to see what his colleagues are doing. So I'll underline spends a lot of time watching to see what his colleagues are doing because to me it's showing that he has he wants to get things right. But it also says so that he will fit in with them and be liked. So this is a key little clause here. So he will fit in and then be liked because we know that human nature, to be able to fit in and to be liked is what we know as normative social influence, the basic need to feel accepted and liked. So explain Annie's behavior in terms of compliance. So here you explain it in terms of in public, Annie is watching to see what his colleagues are doing. So in terms of compliance, even though he may not actually believe it, he's displaying normative social influence because he wants them to like him. Yeah, so you kind of have, again, remember to use the words public and private as well. Again, the following statements are all related to conformity. So A, doing what the group does in order to be liked by them. Okay. Let's look at the rest of them first. Doing what the group does because we do not know what else to do. Okay. Going along with a group, even if we do not really agree with what they are doing. Yep. And going along with a group because we accept their beliefs and attitudes into our own cognition. So to me, that all is statements, obviously, well related to conformity. Now, the task in the table below, write which statement, A, B, C, or D, describes each type of conformity. So let's look for internalization. So is it doing what the group does in order to be liked by them? Not really, because in order to be liked, that's looking at more normative social influence. What about doing what a group does because we do not know what else to do? To me, I would say that sounds a lot like internalization, but we're going to read on. So going along with a group, even if we do not really agree with what they are doing, nope, that doesn't sound to me like internalization. And going along with a group because we accept their beliefs and attitudes into our own cognition. So this is a bit, so the answers could be B or D. So it's entirely up to you because they've given you a choice of two. Entirely up to you which one you do for internalization. So you can either do B or D. And compliance, doing what the group does in order to be liked by them. So that's not really compliance. That's more normative social influence. Going along with a group, even if we do not really agree with what they are doing. So to me, it sounds like compliance is C. Looking back at internalization, actually, I would actually say the best one to do is going along with a group because we accept their beliefs and attitudes into our own cognition. So I'd say preferably for internalization, you can use D simply because B is more to do with informational. And remember, don't get mixed up with they're looking at types of conformity. Yeah, so internalization is D and compliance here is C. Okay. And that is the end of lecture 1A for all the past examination questions that have come up about conformity, types of conformity, and explanations. Please, please, please do look at the further lectures, I think 4B, 4C, 4D, and 4E, about how I've managed to write down the essay questions so you as well can look at it, emulate it, copy it, whatever, so you can get a really good grade for this as well. See you next lecture.